Beautiful and deadly, gentle yet fierce, lively but lethal. They care for nature, yet they bring death. Dryads. They were worshipped by our ancestors. People lived in harmony with them. Thanks to them, we respected nature. Forest nymphs. They protected every tree in the woods. Even now, in villages, people believe in them. They ask for their blessings and celebrate their festivals. They are a significant part of our ancient culture, a part of human creativity without which people would not be what they are now. Today, we'll delve into the beautiful forest nymphs, the Dryads, in our world's mythology and in the Witcher universe, and their eternal kingdom called Brokilon, because the old Witcher is right here. Before we begin, we thank as always our patrons for their support, whose help allows us to release content on a regular basis. Thank you guys. And here we go. Dryads in mythology. Every river requires its nymphs. Every grove requires its dryads. Dryads were first mentioned in Greek mythology. There, they are not beings of incredible power, but are described as extremely beautiful, numerous, and important to the balance of nature as spirits. Interestingly, dryads are just one of the subspecies of nymphs, of which there are an incredible number in the same Greek mythology. Some are responsible for rivers and lakes, naiads. Others watch over the mountain ranges. Those are Oreads. And there are those that watch over the balance of the seas and oceans. Those are Nereids. Dryads are nymphs of forests and trees. The ancient Greeks believed that each tree had its own dryad. They described them as beautiful, naked ladies who are tied to the trees in the forest, living and dying with them. Dryads are so beautiful that they can seduce both humans and even the gods of Olympus. They are incredibly shy and gentle creatures who will not even show their faces without a serious reason. However, their power should not be underestimated. If a person tries to harm the tree to which the dryad is tied, the forest nymph will defend herself, become aggressive, and can cast an extremely strong curse. Some dryads can move from tree to tree, while others, called hamadryads, die with their tree. Although there is no mention of male dryads in mythology, there is information that these forest spirits reproduce naturally. To produce offspring, they simply find suitable men or even gods, seduce them, and after a while, another dryad appears. It is mentioned that dryads can make men experience incomparable pleasure from lovemaking with them. That is why, especially impressionable men often travel through the forests in search of beautiful dryads. An ordinary girl could also become a dryad if she wished. She only had to come to the forest and pray to the gods to grant her this essence and power. There were few such ones, however. Turning into a spirit forever chained to a tree was not often perceived as a blessing. The image of the dryad is deeply rooted in the epics of the peoples of Europe. In the past, people have always been very close to nature, identifying with the flora and fauna of this world, defying them, and worship them. That is why they began to talk about dryads everywhere. Beliefs about these nymphs reached even the ancient Slavs, where the spirits were often called dravasnici. Groves and forests have always been something sacred to our ancestors. People came to the trees for advice, shared with them stories of life and grief. Slavs believed that every tree housed a spirit. If the tree was young, then cutting it down would kill the spirit of the tree. If it was old, then the dravasnica had already gained experience and strength to, if necessary, move to another tree and protect it. Slavic dryads were described similarly to the ancient Greek ones, but they had their own features. For example, a beautiful dryad was distinguished from an ordinary woman by long green hair. Dryads also talked to each other. This purpose was attributed to the rustling of forest leaves, and if a person offended one tree, the whole forest immediately became aware of it. That is why, for ordinary needs, peasants preferred to take dried and fallen trees. If fresh wood was needed, a man had to ask the dryad for permission to cut it down. Then the forest spirit passed from one tree to another and gave the man her blessing for the log. If a house was built from such blessed trees, it would stand for a really long time. By the way, this is very similar to how tales about werewolves came into the folklore of Slavic people after they originated in Western Europe. We have a separate video about that, by the way. Go and watch it if you like our Bestiary videos. Tales of dryads rooted themselves in the minds of our ancestors and became truth for them. That is why they have survived to this day, closely intertwined with legends of other nature spirits. Of course, the wood women became a popular motive and a source of inspiration for a huge number of talented people, writers, artists, and musicians. They have created and are still creating unique works about dryads. And of course it was the Dryads that were to become and have become some of the most important creatures of the fantasy world of the Witch universe, which was created by a certain Polish writer named Andrzej Sapkowski. Dryads of the Witch world. In the Witch world, Dryads are not magical spirits but are mortal creatures. All Dryads are female, and they only occasionally use normal human males for the sole purpose of reproduction. Dryads are incredibly beautiful in appearance and thus attract men of all mortal races. Though they look rather unusual, their bodies are proportional and flawless. Their movements are smooth and their touch is gentle. Their society is governed by a high priestess who guards the memory of the forest and passes on her knowledge to the young. This society lives in the forests, guards these forests, feeds on the fruits of these forests, and cares for the balance of nature. On the continent, the largest settlement of Dryads is the vast forest of Brokilon, which borders Verdun to the west, Bruges to the south, Temeria to the east, and Sedaris to the north. Dryad society there was forced to become strict and warlike. Humans were taking more and more of the land around them, cutting down trees and reducing the forest area. The Dryads were forced to respond with force. They began to kill those who entered the forests, and the borders of Brokilon became a cursed place where even an ordinary passing traveler could catch a deadly poison arrow. Every path in the forest is littered with dozens and hundreds of absolutely invisible deadly traps. The Dryad society has become a band of warriors, still incredibly beautiful but now extremely deadly creatures. Only a human or elven girl can become a Dryad. The first way for this is already mentioned earlier. Dryads use strong and healthy males of other races to reproduce. But an ordinary mortal girl can also turn into a Dryad. The child gets lost in Brokilon, is abandoned by unscrupulous parents, or is kidnapped. The child is taken to Eithne, the leader of Dryads, who can give the girl the special water of Brokilon, after tasting which the little girl forgets her past life, loses her usual human emotions, and becomes a servant of the forest, joining the society of the Dryads. In his books, Andrzej Sapkowski described only the beauty of the Dryads. Not too much is said about the details of their appearance. There is information only about some of their features. For example, that the sweat of the Dryads smells of vervain leaves rubbed in their hands. It is known that true Dryads look like elven girls, taller, slimmer, and more graceful, while the Dryads transformed with the help of Brokilon's water look more like human girls, with their rounded ears and larger teeth. Some canon of appearance has only been endowed to Dryads in the Witcher game universe. There, they're depicted with green skin, pointed facial features, and long hair of different colors. Dryads have their own structure of ruling society, unique beliefs, culture, and crafts. Logically, the Dryad society, made up entirely of female members, is a total matriarchy. All of them are subordinate to the one supreme ruler, Eithne, who lives in a kind of a capital of their state, the heart of Brokilon, the abode of Canal. The sacred city is located quite deep in the forest, and no one but the Dryads themselves knows the way to it. The beliefs of the Dryads are based on harmony with nature. Forest warriors believe that there is a great power hidden in all things, which can be used for good. They live in harmony with this world and dream of bringing the rest of the world to this harmony. Because of this, nature gives the Dryads amazing abilities. Many of the forest beauties have incredible healing powers. The healers living in the Brokilonian sanctuary of Kal Sirei, led by the Dryad Glace, heal even the most severe injuries. And perhaps the Dryads would have continued to exist in perfect harmony with this world if it were not for the insatiability of the humans. Humans settled the entire continent. They covered it with their settlements and farms, which needed wood, a lot of wood to maintain and build. Their gaze immediately turned to the vast forested area, which they reduced in size every year. All until the Dryads of Brokilon went into a state of war. The Dryads began killing humans, and only then did the humans stop approaching the forest. The human states that formed on the border of Brokilon did not like this, of course. The Dryads were declared enemies, but no one was in a hurry to fight them on a full scale. Losses in military operations in uncharted forest thickets, where a deadly arrow could come from behind every tree and the killer would not even be noticed, could spell catastrophe. The ancient enmity between Dryads and humans hardened both races. The former began to demand the extermination of more non-humans, and the latter often perceived the defense of the forest with excessive fanaticism, taking the lives of those who in no way claimed any piece of territory or timber but simply lost their way and carelessly approached the wall of the Brokilon forest. Yes, the Dryads are often overly ruthless, but let us not forget that they have a good reason for that: survival. In addition to that, Dryads do not fight humans, feeling the need to throw them into the sea. In general, they consider elves and dwarves to be no better than humans. They are fighting for their lands and their home. Geralt meets Ciri and Brokilon. In the story of Geralt of Rivia, the Dryads play an extremely important role. They rescue and guide the Witcher several times both in the book saga and the game universe. There are many stories with them in Sapkowski's works and many interesting quests throughout the game series. The most memorable story of Geralt and the Dryads, however, is described in the book Sword of Destiny, which tells of Geralt and Ciri's first meeting. It is true, running towards each other at Yorga's farm is not the moment the Witcher and the Child of Destiny meet. It was under the canopy of the trees of Brokilon Forest that Geralt and Ciri first met, and, as is often the case in the Witcher saga, their meeting was completely accidental. It all began with another attempt by Queen Calanthe of Cintra to find a suitable match for Princess Cirilla, and with that to bind herself by blood to a potentially reliable ally. Calanthe and Ciri arrived in Verdun, where the Princess of Cintra was to meet a Prince of Verdun named Kistrin. King Ervil of Verdun gladly welcomed the guests from the south, also hoping for a good match for his son. But the willful Cirilla was of a different opinion. She did not like Kistrin at all, and one day Ciri simply stole a horse and ran away from the Verdun castle of Nestrog. Since she was immediately followed by a search party, for the loss of the princess threatened Ervil with a state scandal of unbelievable scale, Ciri found nothing better than to hide in the dense forests nearby, which turned out to be Brokilon. At the same time, the Witcher Geralt of Rivia was in Brokilon. He was hired around the same time by King Wenslav of Bruges, who wanted to negotiate with the Dryads. He offered Geralt an unusual contract. For Geralt, it was necessary to come to Brokilon, get to the Dryads there, and reach the ruler, Queen Eithne, to deliver a message. Wenslav did not want sacrifices, but realized that he had to expand his holdings and his influence in Brokilon. So he decided to suggest through Geralt that Eithne make peace with Bruges. By doing so, he wanted to increase his influence over the Dryads. Realizing that war with them was not an option, Wenslav wanted to kill two birds with one stone: to make peace with the Dryads, thus reducing the number of subjects killed in Brokilon, and to actually take over the forest. King Wenslav even forbade the killing of Dryads in his lands. This earned him the disapproval of the people of the kingdom, who hated these cursed female warriors. He hoped it would help soften Eithne up, and by nature, he was a peace-loving and reasonable man, terrified of the blood that poured daily in Brokilon, and he found the only one who could deliver this message to the ruler of the Dryads, a Witcher. After arriving in Brokilon, Geralt found several corpses, and even an old acquaintance, the Verdun baron named Freyxinet, whom Ervil had sent to look for the missing princess, lying wounded among the bodies. Geralt had no time to help Freyxinet, for he was quickly surrounded by the Dryads, and only a little knowledge of the ancient languages of the forest warrior people helped Geralt not to be killed on the spot. Geralt told them that he was only a messenger who had some important words to deliver to Lady Eithne. So he was given one Dryad guide and sent to Duencanal. It was a long journey, and one day, Geralt and the Dryads suddenly heard the frightened girl scream. They moved quickly toward the sound and found a little girl who was trying to hide from a terrible monster, a huge scolopendromorph. The Witcher did not know it yet, but the one he saw for the first time at that moment was Cirilla Fiona Ellen Rhiannon, the daughter of Pavetta and Dunny, also known as the Urchin of Erlenwald, and the granddaughter of Calanthe, Princess of Cintra. Geralt ran up to the girl in a few moments. With the help of the Dryad, he destroyed the huge millipede, cutting off the monster's head, and finally turned his full attention to the frightened child. It was not a Dryad, neither was it an elf, a sylph, a pixie, or a hobbit. It was the most human of little girls, even within the territory of Brokilon, the place least conducive to such a being. She had fair hair, mouse gray, and large impetuous green eyes. She could not have been more than 10 years old. "Who are you?" he asked. "Where did you come from?" She did not respond. "Where have I seen her before?" he thought. "I have already seen her somewhere. Her or someone very like her." Of course, Geralt did not immediately recognize the daughter of Pavetta. He had seen her for the first time, and the long-ago events in Cintra were distant in his memory. but still there was something about this girl. Since it was impossible to leave her in this forest, Geralt took Ciri on his shoulders and they, together with the Dryad god, whose name was Braenn, went again in the direction of Dwayne Canal. It was kinda difficult to persuade the princess, who refused to say where she came from, to go further, but still Geralt was able to change her mind by threatening another encounter with a huge millipede. On the way, the girl told everything, that she had been brought to Verdun, that she was supposed to marry young Kistrin, that she didn't like the prince, and the prince didn't like her. She showed herself to be an obstinate girl, which Geralt managed to subdue with a little bit of a spanking. She still would not stop talking for a moment though, feisty and willful. Braenn had noticed it too. Now the Dryads saw Ciri as a future tribeswoman, for girls who enter Brokilon always become Dryads as well. They are given the waters of Brokilon and they forget the past. That is the tradition. Geralt understood that. Although he felt sorry for Ciri, he did not want to interfere in the process. After all, why should he care about this girl's fate? Yes, he decided he would try to change Eithne's mind, but he had little hope of doing so, and she kept talking and talking. When they stopped for the night, she went on and on about herself.
Grandma knows that I'm obligated to come back. I don't have to be a princess or even the wife of that idiot Kistrin. I must come back, that's all.
You're obligated, he thought. Unfortunately, this depends on neither you nor your grandmother. It will depend on the mood of old Eithne and my ability to convince her.
Grandmother knows,
continued Ciri.
Because Geralt, swear to me that you won't repeat this to anyone. It's a horrible secret. Terrible, I'll tell you. Swear.
I swear.
I'll tell you. My mama was a sorceress, you know? And my papa was cursed. That's what one of my nannies told me. And when grandmother learned, it was a terrible scene. Because I'm predestined, you know?
For what?
I don't know,
she responded, preoccupied.
But I'm predestined. That's what my nanny told me. And grandmother said that she will not allow it, that she'd rather all the castles fall in ruin. You understand? And my nanny started crying and grandmother started screaming. You see, I'm predestined. I'll never be married to that idiot Kistrin.
And then Ciri asked Geralt to tell her a fairy tale, an interesting tale about a clever cat. Even Braenn listened to this tale, and finally the three of them fell asleep, huddled tightly together to keep warm. After a few days of such a journey, the Dryad, the girl, and the Witcher arrived in Dwayne Canal. Before reaching the heart of Brokilon, Braenn blindfolded Geralt. In the city of the Dryads itself, where every house was a living tree, Geralt once again met the wounded Baron Freixenet of Verdun, whom the Dryads had taken in and treated with their magical methods. Finally, Geralt met with Eithne. The sovereign of Brokilon wore a thin green dress, light and flowing. She was like most of the Dryads, small and thin, but carried herself proudly. Her serious and hard face, her pursed lips, gave the impression that she was larger and more powerful. The color of her hair and her eyes resembled molten silver. The Witcher already understood who Ciri was. He did not want to admit it to himself, but he understood completely. First, she tried to talk to the ruler of Brokilon to give her King Venslav's message, but she would not listen. She went to the bedside of the wounded Freixenet, asked if he could conceive a child, and when he answered in the affirmative, she left. Eithne recognized Ciri as a child of the elder blood, but also recognized in the princess simply a healthy, strong girl who could become another Dryad. And the Witcher, who had been running from his destiny for so long, unwittingly met it where there was almost no way it could happen even in theory. Geralt followed Eithne, and later Ciri was brought to the home of the Lady of the Forest and given a bowl of Brokilon's water. Geralt tried to change Eithne's mind, in an angry, accusatory way, but nothing worked on the lady. Only Braenn, who was in the room, suddenly remembered her human name, and the young Dryad's hands trembled. She had been in the company of Geralt and Ciri for too long, and she remembered many things. The Witcher continued to ask that Eithne let Ciri go, but he got met with a cold refusal. He wanted to leave, but Ciri's words held him back.
Your Majesty, noble lady,
began Ciri in a broken voice.
Don't force me to stay here. I can't. I want to go. I want to go with Geralt. I must with him.
Why with him?
Because it's my destiny.
Ciri realized who Geralt was too.
Geralt,
murmured Ciri, still standing motionless, her back bent. "Don't leave me alone." And he stayed. He watched Ciri drink Brokilon's water, knowing that now she should fall into unconsciousness and then forget about the past. But nothing changed. Ciri took a sip of Brokilon's water and remained standing, looking around with uncomprehending eyes. And Eithne, oh, now the lady's voice trembled as well. She asked the obligatory question in such cases, whether Ciri wanted to stay in Brokilon. Usually, after this water, the girls would answer yes and become Dryads. But not now. "Child of the elder blood," she continued, "choose. Do you prefer to stay in Brokilon or follow the path of destiny?" The witch's head turned incredulously. Ciri breathed more rapidly. Her cheeks took on color, but nothing more. Nothing.
"I want to follow the path of destiny,"
said the little girl, looking the Dryad straight in the eye. "Let it be so. Let it be so," replied Eithne, her voice cold and dry. "I ask you to leave." Was it destiny? Is it elder blood? Or is it something else? Who knows? It had been exactly 6 years since Geralt met Pavetta and Dunny, aka the Urchin of Erlenwald. 6 years since the witch used the Law of Surprise. He did not want to remember it, but his destiny had found him, and that was Ciri. Geralt could not believe it. He even thought that Eithne had set it all up, that the water of Brokilon was fake. But after tasting the water, Geralt fell into unconsciousness. He woke up only at the border of Brokilon. He was carried out of the forest, and beside him stood little Ciri. "You are the daughter of Pavetta, the granddaughter of Calanthe of Sintra. You knew from the beginning who I was."
"No,"
she responded, blushing.
"Not at first. It is you who disenchanted my papa, isn't it?"
"Not really." He shook his head. "It was your mother, with the help of your grandmother. I only helped them."
"But Nanny said, she said that I was the subject of destiny, because I was the surprise. The child surprise, Geralt."
"Ciri," he looked into her eyes, nodding and smiling. "You can believe me. You are the biggest surprise I have ever met."
"Ah,"
the girl's face cleared.
"then it's true. I am the subject of destiny. Nanny predicted that a witch would come, that he would have white hair, and that he would take me with him. Grandmother cried. How will it be? Where are you taking me? Tell me."
"Home, to Sintra." On the border of Brokilon, the Witcher and Ciri met bandits, from whom they were again helped by Dryads. Geralt saw Braenn once more, but there was no trace of the young Dryad's uncertainty. She had turned back into a deadly warrior and asked Geralt to forget her, for she herself had forgotten both her name and her past. And then Mousesack rode out to meet them, a druid and confidant of Queen Calanthe. He was looking for Ciri and he found her. The princess was to return home. The betrothal to Kistrin was broken, and Geralt, he waited until Ciri was asleep and just handed her over to Mousesack. He abandoned her. He ran away from his destiny. He would come to his senses much later, and much later he would realize that Ciri is truly his destiny. Much later he would realize that he loved this girl and would do anything for her. But even now, the girl didn't want to let him go just yet. Geralt went slowly through the heather that reached his stirrups, in the main slope of the valley, toward the Black Forest.
"Geralt!"
He turned. Ciri stood at the top of the hill, the little figure with ashen hair looking defeated.
"Don't go!"
He waved his hand.
"Don't go!"
She screamed with less strength.
"Don't go!"
"I must," he thought. "I must see, because I'm leaving forever."
"Don't think that you'll get away so easily!"
she cried.
"Don't even think it! You can't run away! I am part of your destiny, you hear?"
He heard, but he had to go. Everything was happening the way it was supposed to happen. The Dryads of Brokilon, on the other hand, continued their struggle. It is true, Brokilon would probably fall sooner or later, but not until at least one Dryad could hold a bow. Until then, Brokilon will stand. The Dryads will live, and little girls will forget their past and become cold-blooded protectors of the forest. Well, that is all for today. Put likes if you like this video and do subscribe to our channel. Click the bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Write about what the author may have gotten wrong, what you guys don't understand, or what you might disagree with. Also, we would greatly appreciate if you supported our creativity on Patreon or with a direct sponsored subscription right here on YouTube. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and see you soon when the old witcher speaks once more.